Hey everybody, it's Tanner Mulvihill. Hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. You know, every week I stress on this show the importance of asking for the business, and I wouldn't be a very good podcast host if I didn't take the opportunity to do the same. If you would consider leaving me a 5-star review on whatever platform you are listening to this show on, that would be greatly appreciated. And if you know a top real estate agent you think should be on the show, please let me know that as well. I'd love the opportunity to hear from them and tell their story. On this episode, I sat down with Navy veteran and team leader of the Brooke Miller team at Long & Foster Realtors, Brooke Miller. During our conversation, Brooke and I discussed how downtime early in her career led to leadership opportunities later, how she saw firsthand how coaching changed the career of real estate agents, and finally a story about the need to stay professional as a real estate agent because you never know what you're about to walk into. And now my interview with Brooke Miller on the Virginia is for Realtors podcast. Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Virginia's for Realtors. I am pleased to be joined today by Navy veteran and team leader of the Brooke Miller team at Long & Foster Realtors, Brooke Miller. Brooke, how are you today?
I'm doing awesome, Tanner. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so excited for you to come on. We were talking a little bit before we jumped on here. I beat you into the business by 2 months. We're getting pretty seasoned.
That's right. It hasn't been a wonderful 20 years.
It started off really, really strong, and then we had a little turbulence there in the middle. And for the last 10 years, it's been really great. So
middle has been the making of us, don't you think?
Yes. One guest referred to it as a PTSD moment. He wasn't wrong. But having you on the show, almost 20 years in the business, been at Long & Foster for a long time. I don't know if the whole time, but a long time, whole time. Yeah. And let's go ahead and start though from the beginning. So what brought you into the business? What were you doing beforehand? All that good stuff.
Sure. So I was a Navy officer. I did ROTC in college.
Okay.
Provided a full scholarship,
nice.
Which was wonderful. I graduated on a Sunday morning and was commissioned an officer 2 hours later and went to work the next day.
Holy cow.
That's kind of how my Navy career started. I was what's called a surface warfare officer. And so I was an unrestricted line officer, meaning I was not pigeonholed into a certain type of billet or MOS is what you could say. I would learn everything I could learn, serve every single billet I could serve, and eventually have command of my own cruiser, destroyer.
Wow.
Going into the Navy, living the lifestyle. At first, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. No kids, no marriage, no nothing. I'm going to be married to the Navy. And then I met my future husband and the whole plan changed.
Gotcha.
So plan changed to, at the end of my 4 years active service, I would leave active duty. My husband was doing the same thing. We're actually on pretty much the same timeline, which was amazing. So we left active duty. We had been planning our wedding for a couple years, and we planned it for after we left active duty because I was out to sea all the time, moment's notice, gone for 3 or 4 weeks at a time. So we couldn't plan anything. So we got married, moved to Fredericksburg in June of 2003. And I came here with no prospect. So we came to Fredericksburg because my husband was the first to get a job offer. He works out at Dahlgren still for the Navy as a Navy civilian. And so that's what brought us to Fredericksburg. And I started my job search and a couple things going against me at the time. My degree's in political science. Even though I had 4 years Navy experience and all this science and physics and electrical and all this kind of stuff in my background, I didn't have the degree. So at the time, it was very hard to find a position. So I looked at multiple jobs, I guess I could say. And then my mother suggested, what do you think about real estate? And I really enjoyed the process I went through in buying my home. Isn't that the story of everyone?
Right.
They'll say, oh, I really enjoyed it. So I decided to jump 100% in. I went right after Labor Day of 2003. I took my 2-week, get it done licensing course, went up to Northern Virginia. Hurricane Isabel came through on September 15, 2003. We lost power. Trees were down everywhere. There were tornadoes, all this craziness. I took my licensing test the next day on Scantron because we had no electricity. I took my licensing test in candlelight, basically.
Holy cow.
That's how I got licensed and then signed on with Long & Foster. I loved Long & Foster, the company, and I loved Dottie McGinnis, who was our former manager. She has been a great mentor to me and continues to still be a great mentor to me. And I never looked back. So that's how it all began.
That's a pretty whirlwind kind of a tour for you there. You had no experience with the Fredericksburg area prior to this move?
When we moved here, I knew my real estate agent and my husband. So I had to figure it all out.
Yep. I think a lot of people who listen to this podcast can relate to that, who come from different areas. And, a lot of times they're not necessarily from the area. So you just kind of have to figure it out. But I want to talk a little bit more about the Navy career. You're gone for 2 weeks at a time. Are you hopping on different ships? Are you getting on the same ship every time? How's that go?
Same ship every time. So one of the main things we would do, and we were really good at it, I was really good ship driver. So the officer doesn't hold the steering wheel or the helm. The officer tells the helmsman what to do and tells the guy, working the speed what to do. So I was really good at that. So anytime I actually got medals for it and stuff like that, which was so cool. That's one thing I miss. But anytime we needed to be in a position where precision was absolutely required of the ship, I would be the one driving the ship. But when the ship went out, everyone had to go back. And so some examples are we had to run some drug interference in the Caribbean. We would capture oil smuggling ships from Iraq in the Persian Gulf, and we would have to get up real close, and our boarding team would board the ship and take it over and all that kind of stuff. We also would serve as what's called plane guard. So you all have seen the aircraft carriers and the beautiful drama of these jets taking off and landing.
For sure.
Well, you never see the little ship that's right behind them that's keeping an eye on things. So at night, our lights on our masts and things like that help guide the airplanes in. So we have to be very precise in our precision relative to the aircraft carrier. But we're also there just in case a plane doesn't land on the aircraft carrier.
Right.
Or lands on it and just keeps going or something like that. So we're there to pull people out of the water when they've ejected. And unfortunately, from time to time, we have had to rescue folks after crashes.
Wow.
So it was a very emotional experience, moments of extreme panic and action and endorphins. And a lot of time it just hanging out and
sitting there,
something to happen.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's what I love. That's what I loved about it.
That's a very cool job. What's your favorite Navy story from your time in?
Oh my gosh, Navy story. Well, I have a lot of stories, but I can't
They can't make the air. Got it.
So a few things I really, really miss is for those of you who've never been on a ship out to sea in the middle of sea, even on a cruise ship, just looking up at the stars is the most incredible thing because there's no lights. There's no light pollution or anything. And that is just an amazing, amazing experience. I loved the wildlife. So as a rescue swimmer as well, I got to see all kinds of weird stuff in the middle of the ocean. So that was pretty cool. And I just love the water. I just love the water. So being near the water is important to me. Don't have that here in Fredericksburg, but I make sure I take my trips out and about. I guess the best story is how I met my husband. I thought he was a jerk, a real jerk, but we got to know each other over time on the ship. He was an officer as well. I was the electrical officer, so I was in charge of anything that ran off of electricity. He was the ordnance officer. He was in charge of anything that explodes or shoots or goes boom. So we never really had our paths crossing that much, but we had a great camaraderie on the ship and we got to go out often. So meeting him, I guess, is the best story that's still being told.
Very, very nice. One of the things I would add to my memory of being on ship was you don't realize how steep the stairwells are until that's not something you do on a regular.
They're called ladders.
Right.
Ladders for a reason.
Right. I don't know how you felt about it. When I first got on, I was like, holy cow. You're like turning around, going, down one way. And then as you're on there for, I don't know, whatever time it is, now suddenly you just like shoot down them, right? Just go. And you don't even think about it. And then until you see like a civilian get on and they're just like, wait a minute, what are we doing?
How are we doing this? Yeah.
Exactly.
It takes a while. So. And then some of the little scuttles, the little holes you have to go through, stuff like that.
Very tight quarters. And the longer you're on the ship, the more it seems bigger, the longer you on it, I felt. But when you first get on, you're just very much like, oh, wow, this is.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's that distinct ship smell. You probably remember that. I don't know what it is.
It's a mixture of grease and, people and just cleaning supplies and medical and suntan lotion when people are coming back from the shore or whatever. But yeah, those are my memories. So we're going to talk about that first year in business for you. So you've gotten your license, and now I know nobody here but my realtor and my husband, and it's go time. So we'll be right back with Brooke Miller. Do you have clients considering new construction, looking for a builder that takes pride in their work and delivers a beautiful home? If so, I'm excited to tell you about Sona Homes located in Fredericksburg. If you haven't visited a new Sona home yet, reach out to my friend and sales manager, Adarsh Parbadia, at 540-419-3164. Adarsh will be able to answer all your questions about Sona Homes and make it a great experience for your clients. Again, that is Adarsh Parbadia with Sona Homes at 540-419-3164. Make sure you tell them Tanner sent you. Brooke, you've now moved to a place you've never been.
Right.
Your husband has taken a job at Dahlgren, and you have gotten your real estate license through a storm. So what happens for you? How did you start?
Okay, so I started not knowing anyone, as you mentioned, but I had been going to the YMCA. So I think YMCA was kind of my first step, getting out of my comfort zone, and getting my license forced me to be more outgoing and meet people. I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. I moved there when I was 2. I never had to meet new people, so I wasn't necessarily comfortable with that. So at the YMCA, Butler Road was the only one around at that time. I just started meeting people and introducing myself. But I'll say this, I was pretty timid about saying that I was a real estate agent for a couple. Number one is I was very young. I was in my 20s, and the stereotypical agent, especially at that time, I think now it's changing a little bit, but at that time it was a middle-aged, 50s, 60s. And so I think because I looked young, my thought was I would seem very inexperienced, though I was inexperienced, but I was a little bit nervous about that impression. So I tried to meet people. We joined a church and met some great people at the church. But I think the biggest thing that helped me meet people is just getting involved in the community. So I found organizations and nonprofits that spoke to me, and I really dove in and got involved in those, which expanded my network a little bit more. The other thing I did was I educated myself as much as possible. So I didn't get a deal that entire fall of 2003. The first contract wrote was not until March of 2004. So everyone talks about, oh, that market, it was so crazy and wild. Well, if you don't know anybody, I mean, the key is you got to know people, right? If you don't know anybody, it's not going to fall in your lap. So I educated myself as much as possible. I figured since it's slow right now, I'm going to take my time to learn the systems. I'm going to take my time, get my GRI. I'm going to take my time and get my ABR, except for the buyer checks in the boxes. Those will come later. So I really dove in to do that. And through those classes, I learned about other paths that we could take as far as marketing is concerned, as far as negotiations, as far as contracts and law. And so when I did get that very first client, which was a floor duty phone call, I knew I was confident and I knew what I was talking about. There were still things that I had to learn, but I at least had the confidence moving forward. So all of my business that very first full year was floor duty, to be honest with you.
I'm interested because the mental fortitude to stick with it. And for the people listening, you've closed hundreds of deals now.
Oh, yeah.
Year one was kind of a wash for you, certainly. Yep. And the career just took off from there. But to stick with it, because there are many people that are getting out now. We're losing 35% of the loan officers, 35% of the realtors, if not more. And there are people that are really struggling and going, is this for them? What was it that kept you driving? Like, I can do this. I just have to get somebody to help.
Yeah, I hold myself accountable. That's one of the skills I learned. I think I've had it my whole life, but really drilled into me during the military time. and discipline, but also just being goal oriented and having an abundance mentality has been really important to me. I didn't know that's what I had until later when I did all this personal development stuff, but having an abundance mentality is really good. I'll say, I think, to be honest, it's much harder for today's real estate agent who just got in the business within the last 3 years. It's going to be much harder for them to stay motivated and see the potential growth and the future because they didn't have as much of a challenge at the beginning than those of us who started during the recession, or those of us who started when we didn't know anybody. Those of us who started during the recession or didn't know anybody, we had to persevere through all that and built skills and confidences and our own identity. We built that over time. And unfortunately, over the last couple of years, it's been, if you know people, it's been pretty easy to do the job. So I think the biggest thing that helped me stick through it was because it was hard. And I had to keep working and keep growing. So for those folks who have gotten in and are thinking about leaving, I recommend they get involved with like a business coach, or they take some classes other than the CE classes, take classes on goal setting, take classes on personal marketing, take classes on negotiation, things that are not on the CE list, and just really expand their mind. I also recommend that they sit down with some top producers that they like. I have no problem sitting down with somebody if they come to me and ask me, hey, can we go out to lunch and you can tell me what you've been doing and how you grew your business?
Right.
I have no problem with that. I'll tell you, maybe 2 people have asked me. My door at my office is open all the time. Anyone can come in and ask me what's going on. And I'm perfectly fine to share because I have an abundance mentality. There's enough to go around and they're not going to steal my clients or anything like that.
Right.
And everyone works the way we do, you and I, Tanner. I think our whole environment would be a better place. Our whole culture would be better.
It definitely would be a little bit different than our norm sometimes. That is for sure. But such an inspiring tale, though, because there were moments, I'm sure, of darkness where you're just like, I don't know if this is for me. Maybe I go dust off that resume and let's keep looking.
I'll give you a quote. And I know so many of your listeners have heard this before from your spouse. When are you ever going to sell a house? When are you ever going to make money? When are you ever going to do this? You know, I have a very supportive husband, which is fabulous. So I've reminded him a couple times in the last few years, remember when you said, and now you're just trying to get me to, you know, shut it down at night. So
right. Good point. So you're growing, you're learning through the first 10-month period. You get that first one off desk duty. And for those that are listening, desk duty back in the day was when people would call in. They're looking for a rental. Or
desk duty is what I would say Google is now. Same thing.
People would walk in and they'd be like, I'm looking to buy a house. They would literally just walk in, and you know, hard to believe today, but that's what happens. So
yeah, I'm sorry you guys don't have that.
Right. It's a little bit different now for sure. When you were doing this growth, were you also then looking to partner with anybody at the time? Were you off on your own? What was your situation?
I was on my own. That's the way I am. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it myself.
Okay.
So at the time, at least at Long and Foster, there really weren't teams. Teams were more of husband and wife or father-son or mother-daughter partnerships.
Right.
But there weren't teams like there were today. If I were to think back in getting started, if I would be interested in a team, I'm thinking I still would have started the same way I did. I don't think I would have wanted to be a member of a team unless the team's business model was similar to what I have now, which is not traditional. I'm a relationship person, not a transactional person. And so many of the teams these days are very transactional, and that just wouldn't mesh with me. But I have had folks on my team who are just starting out. And the reason why they're on the team is to learn and to learn more. So if there's a team that someone resonates with, they share the same values, they operate the same way, I think being a member of a team is a great learning experience for someone who's new.
Do you recommend that if people are thinking about going the team route, that they interview a couple teams?
Yeah. And I think you have to go into it with the right mindset. And for me, that right mindset is it's not about the team is going to give you transactions. You need to go in it with the mindset of the team is going to teach me how to properly do the business, generate referrals, generate leads, negotiate, all that stuff. If you're solely going into it just so you can sell houses, I don't see that being a long-term plan.
Right. Are you going to teach me how to fish, or are you going to hand me fish that 35% has been taken out already? So
exactly.
But that idea of like, okay, how am I going to be able to duplicate what I'm getting now? How would I build my own team down the road if that's the route they're going to go? So you're in the beginning stage. Now, are you starting to show some rentals during that time too?
Oh, yeah, I did whatever I could because I just wanted to meet people.
Got it.
I just wanted to meet people. It wasn't about the transactions. It was about meeting people, establishing relationships, having the experience, even with rentals, just learning how to fumble through the lockbox,
right?
And how to safely show property or schedule showings. At the time, we had to call the people and talk to the people. I mean, we didn't have showing time and all that stuff. So I did whatever it took to establish the relationships because that was more important to me. And as a matter of fact, that very first contract I wrote was a new construction contract. That was 20 years ago. I'm still in touch with that client. She's still in the house. I'm still in touch with her. We catch up a couple times a year. So
nice. It's always cool to think back that beginning client, and hopefully they'll have done some upgrades when you go to sell it here and, a couple of years down the road.
Oh, yeah, the green Corian countertops, they were so cool back then, but maybe not now.
All right. Well, when we come back, I want to talk about that transition from basically that first year in business to where you're at right now. So be right back with Brooke Miller. Hey everybody, it's Tanner Mulvihill with Bayfield Home Loans. Well, 2023 is here, and if you haven't done so yet, it's time to take a good long look in the mirror and ask yourself an honest question. Is your loan officer helping you succeed? For example, are they bringing you new marketing ideas? Do they actively try to generate referrals from the clients you send to them? Or even better, are they sending you business? My philosophy is business should be a two-way street, and I do my best to make it that way. If that sounds like something you're interested in, please give me a call or shoot me a text to 540-850-6267. Let's get together for coffee. Once again, that number is 540-850-6267. Talk to you soon. Well, welcome back, everyone. So, Brooke, we were reminiscing about the early days of us in the business, and to say you had fortitude would be an understatement because it really takes a lot to work through that. And if you look back on now, whether your best kind of like bold move story, because I love the idea of like, if I had not done this, I would not have gotten X. So for you, what do you think that one was?
Well, you say one, but I'll say it's a combination of 3 or 4.
Okay.
So in chronological order, number 1 was getting my GRI.
Okay.
And I got my GRI right at the beginning of my career, within the first year of my career. And in the GRI, and I recommend it to everybody, it's a designation you keep forever. You don't have to pay a membership. It's an amazing education. I call it like a graduate degree in real estate is basically what it is. And you get CE credit for it. So that's awesome. But in that course, and at the time, technology was very different, but there was a whole course on personal marketing.
Okay.
So up until I took that class, the only marketing I knew of or was exposed to was listing marketing. At the time, we had the magazines, we had newspaper ads, we had all that other stuff. So that's what I was used to. You market yourself as an agent by having listings, and I didn't have any listings. But I took this class on personal marketing and heard about a company named Hobbs Herder. They still are in existence, but not as predominant as they were before. They're a marketing firm out of California that's just for real estate agents. And so I dove into learning as much as I could about marketing, about personal marketing, and brand building. So by 2005, I had created a brand. I had done research and decided on a niche market that I wanted to focus on. And so I dove into that. So that was kind of my first break, doing things a little bit differently than everybody else and spending money. It costs money to do that. But remember, I didn't know anybody. So how am I going to meet people? I have to market so that they call me and then I meet them and then we generate referrals for the rest of the time. So that was kind of my first thing, was learning about marketing and implementing a very robust marketing plan. Then the second thing that happened was the recession. So all of us had to deal with that. That was a circumstance that we all had. I went from having my best year ever in 2006 to having my worst year ever in 2007. And I was fortunate that in that time frame from 2003 and 2006, I got my broker's license. So when you're in the business for 3 years, you can get a broker's license. And I just happened to be asked if I would like to manage one of Long and Foster's offices.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That was a godsend. That was a blessing. So in 2008, April of 2008, I went to manage the Long and Foster office in Stafford. The previous manager was retiring, so I went up there to do that. It's hard going into a place where the recession just kills everything.
Yeah.
And so I learned so much about operating a brokerage, how much it costs to do that. I learned why our commission splits are the way our commission splits. I see the other side of it. So I completely understood that. But going into the recession, I was responsible for those 30 or 40 agents and helping them generate their business. And so I did a lot of research. I did a lot of training. I offered a lot of opportunities to them. Some took advantage and some did not. And the handful that took advantage, only a small number of them actually implemented anything. So it was a little bit of a frustrating experience from a manager perspective, because I kept saying, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. And then the next day, someone's complaining because they don't have any business, but they're not doing what I say you need to do. So having that experience and that frustration, in 2015, I decided to go back into sales.
Okay.
And so I was able, within just a few months, to just implement everything I had been teaching people to do and like proving to them within 3 months it works. So at our company at Long and Foster, a manager cannot list and sell. So we are non-competing. So I went for 7 years without representing clients, without marketing. Onesie, twosie, friends and family are okay. I bought a couple investment properties myself, but other than that, I wasn't marketing, soliciting business. And if I got a referral, I gave it to one of the agents in our office. But July 2015, full speed ahead for Brooke Miller, starting her business back over. So that was one of the nice things. So it was a challenging experience, but what I learned and what I was trying to teach other people, once I was able to implement it myself, it totally proved that that's the way you should do things. And then along the path, I was connected with Buffini and Company, which is a business coaching company. They also do a lot of training and events. I trained in some of their systems when I was a manager, and I fell in love with it. And so that was another turning point for me, was becoming affiliated with Buffini and Company and totally embracing that still to this day.
Did you have a coach when you were doing this transition with them, or was it more their larger platform?
So I didn't start to have a coach until I went back into sales. So that was in 2015. But I knew from 2008 to 2015 that people who are in sales need a coach. And so as soon as I went back into sales, that was the first thing I did, is I got a coach immediately.
From the manager side, but there was a couple of points I was thinking of. You come from the Navy, where if you tell the helmsman, we're going left, right? Or starboard or port or whatever the sides are, right? Now you're in the manager role. They're like, okay, we need to call 15 past clients today. Go team. And then tomorrow they're like, you need to call those past clients?
So yeah. Or they're like, at 9 o'clock, we're going to call past clients. They're like, well, 9's not good for me.
Right.
Can it be 2? Yes, it can be 2. Just
right. So it's such a different environment of leadership, I guess, would be the way I would put it. And then when you were managing, did you have agents that were doing coaching and you could see basically like they got into coaching and then suddenly, the next quarter was better versus year over year stuff? Suddenly it's 100% better. Like, did you see that tangible evidence over and over?
I did. And it's a very few group of folks who have done that, but I absolutely have witnessed firsthand folks getting into coaching, true coaching, and just excelling. And over time, it's not an instant change. It takes years to get to a certain point. On my team, most of my agents have a coach. My agents are coached by a Buffini coach. And what I've noticed in my own career and their careers and other careers that I've seen out there, right about that 5th year. So this is to encourage your folks who are thinking about getting out. Maybe they've only been doing this a couple of years. The 5th year seems to be a turning point for most people. If they're doing the business the right way, if they're establishing relationships, involved in the community, they're not a secret agent, and they do a good job. In the 5th year, that's when the exponential growth starts to appear. And if you have a coach, I think it is even stronger.
Because a lot of times the practices and procedures are in place. It's not like, oh, I got to remember, I got to do the Popeyes, or, oh, I need to make sure I call these people I haven't talked to in 2 years. It's like you've been doing those steps and growing.
Well, it's a compounding effect. So So over 5 years of establishing relationships and doing a good job, getting referrals and sharing successes and learning, all of a sudden, that's where the curve starts to just go up.
So you go back in 2015, back to the sales side, and then you start seeing the immediate success of the things you've been practicing or preaching for the last 8 years. Walk back in on day one, 2015, and have 9 team members with you. How did it go for you from there? What was your first hire that you made? What led to that?
So my very first hire, other than my coach, was an administrative assistant. I knew right away that is something I'm going to need. One of the benefits with my coaching is I received a personality profile. It's called the Real Strengths Profile. Anyone can go get it. You pay a couple $100 for it, but it was included with my membership. In that profile, I learned what I should be doing and everything else I should not be doing. And so things like data entry, paperwork, putting listings in the MLS, taking the photos, doing the staging, all that stuff, that's not stuff that speaks to me and gives me joy. So I knew right away an assistant. I also have studied the Keller Williams, Gary Keller's book on the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and he talks about organic growth. And so my team has grown organically. So the first hire was an assistant to take care of everything that doesn't require a license.
Did you have like, okay, here's my list of things I basically don't like or am not good at doing?
Yes.
And then are you going through a number of interviews to find that person? Is it a friend? I personally try to not hire anybody that I know, because if we have to let you go, I don't want fallout. You know, it came from a friend referral. And
well, my first hire was a referral.
Okay.
I tried to work by referral everywhere.
Right.
So she was referred to me by her sister, who was an insurance agent. I just put out to my database, hey, I'm getting back into sales and I'd like to hire an assistant to focus on these things here. And I got a referral and I talked to her. And as far as I can remember, she was the only one I talked to. And that's what brought her on. And we just knew, I guess emotional intelligence was very important there. We just kind of knew it was going to work.
Nice.
I didn't have all the checklists or systems or anything like that in writing. So that was part of her job, is to put that all together. So it worked out. So by referral is how I did it. And I paid her as a 1099 independent contractor.
Gotcha. So the next hire is someone who is licensed?
Yes. So the next hire just happened. So my first admin was given an opportunity for a full-time position at a government contractor, and that's what she needed to do. And I was very supportive of that. So I reached out to one of the agents in our office who I worked with in Stafford. She was an assistant for another real estate agent in that office. And so I reached out to her to see if she would be interested, because I knew the personalities would be perfect. And she said yes. So she came on as my assistant, but also being able to do some of her own sales. So that was kind of my first experience also as a team leader with other agents working with me.
And let's kind of jump ahead a little bit then to the journey of your makeup of your team now, and then where kind of each one brings something into it for you. So if I'm an agent out there and I'm listening, how does your team function? Do I come on board under you? Like, how does that go?
So our team, I call it a teamerage. So it's a combination of a team with the business model of a brokerage.
Okay.
So I am affiliated with Long & Foster as the broker. I am the team leader, but instead of each licensee having a specific role on the team, buyer's agents, listing agents, there's no pigeonholing. Everyone can be a listing agent. Everyone is a sales agent. Everyone on my team has their own database. Everyone on my team has their own relationships and they do their own business. And it is supplemented by leads generated from team marketing or referrals from within the team and stuff like that. So my main focus with the team and their main focus is they're working their own relationships. And yes, there's a compensation plan, but they are encouraged to have the majority of their business come from their own relationships. My philosophy is I want each team member to be so successful on their own that they could leave the team at any time and still be successful, but they don't leave the team because they love what the team provides for them. They love the culture. They love the collaboration. They love the other people. I have had a couple members leave the team and continue to be successful. And that makes me proud. It doesn't make me upset. It makes me proud that they are able to do that and that they are able to learn. But that's how I approach it. I want them to be successful on their own. Yeah.
What's your most recent hire and what was the need that they filled?
So my most recent hire, part of my growth plan, and this stems from relationships that I've established over the 20 years with other real estate agents, is right now part of my team growth is helping agents transition into retirement. Most recently, an agent who will be retiring in the next several years, whenever they decide they're done. It's funny because it's like one week is like, I'm done. And then the next week is like, I love it. So we go through that. But that agent and I have been talking for several years about this. And as a matter of fact, that agent and I shared an office when I was a brand new agent, and I learned a lot from this agent. But that agent and I were talking and we put a plan together, and she joined the team in December of last year. And then part of that was she had an assistant as well, an amazing assistant. So I hired her assistant as well onto the team. And so she is our transaction coordinator. We call her client experience director. So she takes care of all the transactions, but she also inputs listings and does marketing and things like that. So the two of them came on board the team in December. And so that was the latest thing. So helping agents through transition to retirement, feeling comfortable with everyone on our team. So when they do decide, hey, I'm going to start slowing down, they have a handful, 5 or 6 really good agents that they know will take care of their clients the same way they would. We all share the same values and they feel very comfortable with that.
You're now officially retired or unofficially, but you can still generate some passive income from a referral.
And I'm looking to do that myself.
Right, eventually, right?
So that's kind of the latest. I also have hired some newer agents. And I say hire, I'm not hiring them. They're joining the team, and I'm very selective over who can join the team. We must, at our core, share in the same values. And that's one of the things I've discovered over the years when asking our teammates, why do you like our team? Why are you here? What do you think about it? Every single person says it's because we share the same values at our core. I don't want to say core values because that's like a corporate, these are our core values, but we share the same values at our human core. And though we are all so different in personality and our relationships and how we handle business, because we share all those values, it makes it a great environment.
Right.
So I'm not hiring someone, hey, you're my buyer agent, you just work with all my buyers. That's totally not what we do at all.
It's an interesting concept. It's certainly been very successful. And I know a couple people on your team and they speak glowingly of it. So that's awesome.
I keep it that way.
That's right. That's right.
We're reflective.
Right.
So.
All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to wrap it up with a few ideas on database management and maybe some ideas on lead generation. And then my favorite part, a good story of either scary or funny. So we'll see what you got. We'll be right back with Brooke Miller.
Tanner Mulvihill, NMLS number 276814.
All right. So Brooke, right now, you're getting mixed reactions about the market. Some people are struggling heavily. Some people are maintaining. Some people are growing. I think everybody's feeling that there needs to be more listings. The numbers don't lie, right? It's like, that's where we're at. What are you doing right now to get new business?
Well, I work by referral.
Okay.
So it's that compounding effect. I've been working and creating new relationships, fostering old relationships for several years. So I know that's not what a new agent wants to hear because they didn't have that opportunity to do that. But one of the mindsets in this changing market, because it's like it changes almost every single week, is kind of how it feels. I've really learned how to be an expert, an absolute expert on what's happening in the market. And how did I do that? I didn't take a class. I'm not watching somebody else's YouTube videos and just repeating what they did. I've done this research on my own, figured it out in the multiple listing system. And I'm not just using their reports. I'm literally going in and doing searches and things like that. So that has created, and on our team as well, we have a team meeting every Monday, and somebody different does the market report every single Monday on the week prior. So everyone on my team knows how to do this, and everyone on my team can speak very intelligently about what is happening right now and compare it to other years. So in a changing market, in any market, being the steady resource for your clients, your friends, your neighbors of what is actually happening is more important than listing a house or selling a house to them. So being the resource. I also have put it, one of my goals for this year is to join as many of my clients in my sphere, be on as many of their financial planning teams as possible. Most people don't consider their real estate agent a member of their financial team. They see their CPA and their tax accountant and their financial advisor and their banker, but they don't see their real estate agent as a part of it. And that's because all we do is talk about, I sold this and I sold that. We don't talk about the market or value or equity or interest rates or tools that we can use to leverage and purchase and sell and invest. We don't talk about that. We talk about the hot thing of the day. So my goal is to get established on people's financial advising team, because I think that is a huge role we play. And going into the future, I think the professional real estate agents are going to be part of that financial advising team. So doing the things that your financial advisor would do, they just don't say, buy this, sell that. They tell you why. They tell you where the market's going to go, what their predictions are, where it's been. These are the moves we need to make, and this is why. Being that person for your clients, I think, is one way to be different.
Well, it's interesting that just that idea, though, if you think about that for a minute, you're a brand new agent. Your concern at the time was, well, why are they going to trust me? I'm 23 years old, whatever, right? And I remember feeling that way too. But if you have this data and information, you're immediately adding credibility to what you're talking about year over year. And
I do less than 10% of agents actually know what's happening in the market. 90% who pretend to know, it's because they're just repeating what they hear somebody else say. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of people saying things that are absolutely incorrect.
Yeah.
That are out there. Yeah.
Oh, that's for sure. That's in the industry, it seems like these days.
Well, it's an emotional business too. So a lot of times we talk about the market as far as what we personally have experienced in the last 30 days or in the last week. So if we had 2 sales for a new agent, 2 sales in the last 30 days, you're going to say, oh my God, it's awesome. And then the next month where you have no sales, you're going to say, oh, it's horrible.
Market's slow, right?
But reality, I mean, you have to look at the numbers.
Right. That's a great point. Last one I got for you. So this is my favorite question I get to ask. Do you have a funny or scary story to share about a showing, transaction, meeting, your best real estate story?
A weird story. This is the first popped to my mind. I know if I had more time, I could come up with a million. First off, I was working way out of my coverage area. So this is back early before going into management. So early in my career, I would help anybody. So I was helping some clients that are actually referred to me by one of my friends, and they wanted to live up Alexandria area. Okay. I've never been there before in my life. But I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. So we were looking at properties, and back then that's when you had to call and actually talk to somebody and say, this is what we're doing. We're going to be there between 10 and 2. We're 10 and 11. If that's a problem, call me back. Otherwise, I'll be there. That was my little thing. We still had the lock boxes and everything. We went up and we're looking at some properties, condos, Alexandria area. And we got to one condo and I had my showing confirmed and everything. And I went to open the lockbox and the door opens and it is opened by a woman who clearly is naked, hiding behind the door. Okay. So first off, I'm like, okay. My clients were like, this is interesting. And so she opened the door and I'm like, I have a showing scheduled for today. And I gave her my card. I'll be right back. So she closed the door, came back to the door. She was wearing clothes now. And she's like, sure, you can come on in, but my friend is asleep in the bedroom. So you can just peek. You can just peek in the bedroom. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. Right. Well, we walked in. They obviously had a rager the night before. There were people asleep all over the place. There was vomit on the floor. The place smelled like pot. I mean, it was disgusting. And my folks were like, this seems like a cool neighborhood. We were stepping over vomit. I mean, it was just the weirdest thing. Oh my goodness. We did not buy that condo, but you know, that was back in the day where people could get away with stuff like that and people would still make offers. Yeah. So the feedback to the agent was very interesting. Oh, I can imagine. They were renters. They were renting the condo. So, but that was just a weird experience. But my clients were so impressed and I handled it. You know, I'm just like, watch your step. I've not heard anything like that before. Basically, you walked into a drug-fueled orgy that could have, that was the end result. It was the night before. Right. That was the night before. And they confirmed the showing, which I think is pretty funny. So they're like, yeah, come on by. Yeah. Oh my God. gosh.
Yep. Haven't heard that before. Well, Brooke, I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast today. That story is a topper right there. And congratulations on all your success, all your team success. And for another almost 20 year in the veteran business, I look forward to the next 20 years and figuring out my retirement plan. I got to join your team so I can get on that. You set up the lending side. So
figure that out.
Yeah.
Well, for your listeners, just as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, I am open to sharing what I've been doing and to help people. So if any of your listeners want to reach out, we can schedule a time. I mean, I can't just pick up the phone at 11 and talk for 2 hours. But if we have a scheduled time, I'd be happy to talk to folks about their career. I really want to see as many people succeed in this business as possible. One of the best achievements in my heart, I can't say I made this achievement, but one of the best things that has happened in my career is when I was a manager in Stafford. One of my agents left. Most managers, that's heartbreaking and all this kind of stuff, and it is. But that person left and started their own company, and they are still successful to this day. And I am so proud of that agent and so proud of the fact that I was open to her doing that. And emotionally, I was happy with that decision. And so I love seeing other people succeed. So if any of your listeners just want to bounce some ideas or talk a little bit more, I would love to set up a phone call or a Zoom or something with them to help them out.
That's outstanding. An abundance mindset. So Brooke, thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you, Tanner.
Well, that's it for this episode of the Virginia is for Realtors podcast. If you're a realtor looking for a loan officer you can count on to follow up with the leads you send, keep you updated on the transaction every step of the way, and get you to the closing table on time, give me a call. I'd love the opportunity to sit down with you for coffee to learn more about your business and how we can make it even better. Until next time, this is Tanner Mulvihill on the Virginia is for Realtors podcast.